Hello, everybody. I'm Maxim, founder of Retailgrid. You're on my podcast, and today I have Polina Pavlova. She's a strategy senior manager from Accenture. Polina, hi. And
Hi, Maxim.
we have very interesting topic today about how AI is changing pricing software world. We will talk about B2B and B2C perspectives. And let me first ask Polina to introduce herself and shortly tell our audience her background and cases.
Thank you, Maxim, and thank you for having me. Very excited to our conversation and to the interesting insights we get through it. Yes, my name is Polina, a consultant from Accenture. Have been working on the pricing related transformation projects in the last basically 8-9 years. I am focused on the B2B specifics and B2B pricing transformations, and that entails basically the end-to-end work that Accenture is quite well known for. So from the strategy and from the concept design up to the implementation. And over the last few years, I've been actually very lucky to have very diverse experience covering not only the configuration of the third-party pricing tools, but also custom builds, which is a completely different flavor. So yes, quite excited to see how the new technologies are actually changing the way we used to think and the way we used to work.
Fantastic. Super. Yeah, you have very extensive experience, specifically in B2B. My background in pricing mostly B2C. So that's why we today probably talk both from different perspectives. And yeah, let's start, I think, with the question like everybody is discussing around how AI is changing the pricing world, right? And you are working with many big clients and companies. And what do you feel? I mean, do you see any change right now when like ChatGPT and Claude and many other AI tools available, almost free of charge? And do you feel that impact?
I would say I definitely do. And I think the largest changes, which are common specifically in the area of B2B pricing, entail the reasoning, so the price reasoning, price communication, and overall price orchestration. So what maybe I mean here is that in the B2B, we historically heavily relied on basically sales guidance and sales expertise, basically which drove in its return the customer level pricing. And I think the biggest changes which I see right now coming with Gen AI, they are basically to digitalize this reasoning and to be able actually to explain even to the, for example, novice sales manager, why we would have such a price architecture, for example, within our portfolio, or for example, to be able very easily to retrieve a very similar customer contracts and be able to guide and to explain basically the specific price recommendation. Yeah, so for me, this is basically the areas which are much more subject to change compared, for example, to the conventional, for example, win rate analytics and, for example, also conventional deal guidance.
That's so regarding definitely the impact, but the question is some people they feel some optimism, like you
Yeah.
you're more like expressing optimism, oh it helped us here
Yes.
and here. But lots of software companies they're like threatened because they see the risk that it will replace them. You see that SaaS business is really dropped last months and so do you feel that that too, or you see only positive impact on your projects?
I think it depends on the perspective you're taking on. I consider Gen AI as a sparring partner in thinking. I don't consider it to be a replacement of what I do at work or what my clients do at their work. I consider this as, let's say, an additional team player who could provide its own reasoning, who could maybe give me, in maybe certain moments, a bit more of confidence. Or the other way around, if I'm overly confident and I'm basically receiving a highly different, a polar view, actually make me think a bit more if really my confident thinking is the right one. So I don't think it's a threat in terms of the replacement. I think it's a matter of perspective. And I treat it more positively simply because I look at it as an additional sparring partner in thinking.
This is nice. So I can share my experience with in B2C. So I have been building price optimization software for decades for retail industry and building, implementing, selling, supporting. So yeah, what I see now that if before like some years ago there is a like request from the retailer like, hey, we need to improve profits, we need to take a look on our pricing, like calculate elasticity, let's build a solution in house, or let's go to the market and buy something like ready to use from the vendor. Now there is a like third option, like let's try to just ask Gen AI, just ask Claude, Chat GPT, when I don't know any model, like just put their data and so this is like a new option for top managers. I just talked to one chief executive of a big retailer. They have the challenge with GMROI, like cross margin return on investment, and what they did, they just put all the data to the cloud. It's a not really big retailer, and asked to optimize prices. And the question from the chief executive, like, why I need you? I mean, the cloud answered me some questions. The only thing here is that the guy said, I don't trust those results, so I need still the human to like confirm that it's correct. It looks very fancy, but who can guarantee, right? Who? And that's what probably we can also talk about. Like, do you see in using this Gen AI, right? It's a very now common that before you go to consultant, you go to the chat and ask some questions. Do you see any risk or challenges in that approach when everybody's starting to do it?
I wouldn't say I do see significant risks. I think it's also, again, the matter of the responsible use. In general, I'm happy, I would say I would be happy if people, for example, could use ChatGPT or Claude or anything else basically for validating the thinking or for looking at how this type of the activity, objective or task can be structured or broken down. So it's, again, it gives a bit more of the additional flavor of how you could look at it. I also think that there is a difference between a one-off exercise, which you can do in the moment of time and which could consume relatively significant effort. Yeah, for example, to write the right prompts, to validate that the results are complete, to, for example, be able to really automate this and so on and so forth. Yeah. Versus really a stable Gen AI build solution. So for me, this, from the organization perspectives, are two different animals, so to speak. And I think for now, what we observe is that we observe a certain type of the requests, sometimes rather standalone, sometimes maybe connected to a bigger activity and bigger thinking on what we want to change in pricing. But we don't yet observe the full-fledged solutioning or full-fledged task automation through the Gen AI and Cloud. And I think this is also right now a good strategic opportunity for consulting itself, because we need to build on the second part. On the first part, that's exactly the point which you raised, right? So we're not competitive, and we probably should be, but in terms of adopting the technology, seeing how it can be leveraged, seeing where there are pitfalls, certain traps, how can we make this really stable? How can we ensure that the results have the buy-in? How can we ensure that there is still an area of responsibility or human accountability for whatever the algorithms would say? I think that's where we I still need and hopefully will be needed for quite some time to come.
Yeah, that makes sense completely to me. And if we like, usually there is a project and pre-project, right? What you're describing is that like pre-project, it's now more outsourced to Gen AI. Like like pre-project is like what I need, right? What are requirements? What system I need to build? So, and typically the client can hire a consultant, like help me to build requirements. And after they build requirements, and after they go to the whatever vendor or another consultant and do the project, right? Build the tool or whatever. So you see that in your cases that pre-project is now they use a lot Gen AI for pre-project. like
Yeah, and that also that
build
the pre-project
requirements.
and project start to merge. So in many cases, we should come up with certain things and we should be
Yeah.
able in a matter of 2 weeks test it. Yeah, so we don't clearly see anymore this type of the conventional waterfall separation that you first come with
Okay.
design and we have a
Oh.
buy-in from design. Yeah, so it's much more interflexed right now in a way. And also that is what I actually love about the job itself, you know, because it also changes, yeah. So it always puts you a bit more to the challenge. And that's what I think is really an area where we need to strive to move towards, yeah, to be able to stay competitive in the field. I would maybe also have one quick question for you, because I know for B2C, it's a very different game, yeah? So for the B2B, it's relatively, let's say, relatively easily understandable set of combinations, right? So you don't have that large portfolios typically. I mean, if we don't talk about spare parts, yeah, where we can actually compete with B2C very easily.
Yeah.
But if you speak about the conventional manufacturing, yeah, we really manage, let's say, relatively tangible sets of the materials and customers. For B2C, the situation is completely different. So do you also see, or say, where do you see the biggest change coming in the B2B?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a huge change. So first of all, everybody's now it's available, right? And you start to play with it. You it's so like exciting that you're using it for every moment, right? For everything. Another side of it, that the level of noise has increased dramatically. So, for example, regarding requirements, right? So before, how requirements for any pricing system was built. So you call the consultant, and there is some interviews, right? You explaining what you need. So after this consultant analyzing your company, analyzing your data, and they try to build something which you can use as a like a starting point, right, for the project. So now you can just say, hey, like, here is my business. I need to improve. I need to implement new pricing solution, whatever. Analyze the whole market of all vendors, right? All capabilities, and build like the perfect RFI, request for information, right? So perfect RFI document. So if before it was like 10-page document, which was a result of the work of the team, right? Now it's 100-page document with thousands of requirements, and it's just sent because it's easy. It's almost free of charge, and it's sent to all vendors. Now we get those documents, and what we do, we put them to the Gen AI and say, hey, like, analyze those requirements, check this is my product, make the gap fit analysis, right? It's okay. It's what everybody's doing around. The problem with it, it's not fit the reality, right? So because like one virtual document is created, not fully connected to the real business, and another document like created based on this document. So there is a lot of noise around that, right? So, and like we think that it reduced the work. At the end,
It might not.
I mean, yeah, at some point it reduced the work. Like at some point it created more work, because if you still don't meet and say, okay, this is very nice doc, but what you really need, so out of it, and because 50% of it, it's not relevant to the business. It's just like the idea of the is like a vision, right? So, and that's what I see, and it's not good or bad, right? It's just a new reality. We will be living it. That the this kind of work is so cheap now that everybody can do it. So yeah, the machines talk to machines at the end. So yeah, and that's changing. But the good news that the problem is not it's not solved, right? It's so complex, it's so big context, right? It's so much data you need. It's so complex business process. If we're talking about like 100 million retailer even, right, it's already complex. So it's if it's not like one shop, e-commerce shop, very small, it could be like one click solution. But if it's organization, if offline omni-channel, that requires the project, and it's not, at least for now, I don't see how you can just ask in the chat and automate it. Same for you.
Same for me. I think for me, still the steering layer should be human driven. Yeah. So, because I think one way is, yes, okay, I can outsource relatively simple tasks. For example, I have at least, let's say, 5 key requirements or 25 key requirements, which I highlight, and I ask, for example, to build the requirements around them. Yeah, so to make sure that it's connected, but I still kind of validate, I still check. The point is usually that the more, let's say, the less ownership we have at the requirement phase, the more problems we'll have in the implementation.
Absolutely. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
And that's, I think, something where we really need to shift the thinking, right? So it's rather best to spend more time and to really make sure we understand where we are moving and why, and how we want this to look like, how we want our future, as you mentioned at the beginning, to look like. Then to start, actually going exactly for the same list of the requirements, but I don't know, 2 months into the implementation where you already cannot make such an easy step back. Yeah, and say now we actually don't want this requirement to be showcased. Yeah, we want to replace it or we want to basically neglect it. Yeah, where you might already have certain technical dependencies which are not so easy to resolve. Yeah. So for me, it's always the perspective that at the moment when you start coming up with certain things, that's where we should have a co-ownership with a very clear human-driven steering. And when it comes to the implementation, that's where I can see much more the perspective that maybe it's human guided but technology driven. Yes. So for example, when we build something, right, when we have the user stories, when we have the epics, the tasks, that is something where technology can be much more powerful in doing a consistent, structured, clear in one type of the language translation or interpretation and conversion into the tasks, into the epics, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and where it might be, not even really needed for the human to look at every single comma and every single dot, throughout the process.
That's ownership. I think is a key here. Message
Yeah.
to have someone who is responsible for building that and who's driving the project, and he anyway input is critical because that's something you cannot replace. Somebody should start and give the strategical input, where we go, goals, etc., and high level requirements. I would also mention from B2C project, what I see in retail is that the prototyping is very cheap now, and that unlocks very nice positive side of the requirements and the start of the project. Because before, the big project started with requirements, and it's a result of months of work sometimes, and it's because like people don't know what they want, so they try to like spend enough time to clearly like plan the whole right solution, the product or the project, so to avoid the mistake in the future, right? But it's never happened. Every project start with some requirements, and in the middle you realize, okay, it doesn't work, we need to change, and you move to agile, right? So now you can, I think, avoid or reduce the risk of the problems in the future with requirements, because you can build prototypes at the beginning very quickly, and prototypes, mock-ups, visualization, right? It costs almost nothing now. So it helps before you jump to the water, to the deep water, and start investing a lot of money and resources and time of people. Yeah, somebody can really even like a little bit clickable say, yeah, this is what I need. So this is how it will work. So you can this user flow, and this is really what I like in our projects now, because even in pre-sale stage, before we talk about anything, we can show some end result. We can show that, hey, this is your like data, not completely your, but looks like your data. This is the demo, and this is how we see the result. That reduce extremely, I think, time to value. Do you agree with it?
Yeah, it does resonate with me a lot because, I still remember the case in 2020, 2021. We actually built a custom pricing platform for a CPG producer,
Mm.
but it was much more focused on the B2B front. And I think together with the prototype, a Figma prototype, it took us 3.5, 4 months, with constant changes to Figma. Yeah, trying to see, okay, is this the interface we really want? Is this the workflow we really want? How can we make it really understandable and easily readable and interpretable? And right now, just for example, 2 weeks ago, we received an RFP for the custom build tool. We went to Claude, gave quite a, I would say, nice briefing, and received pretty much clickable prototype of the main 5 screens in a matter of 1 day. Yeah, so, and that's a completely different perspective, a completely different game, so because then it's not something which we try to analyze based on the received RFP information, but it's something where we can transfer it into something tangible and already shown at the moment when we don't even have the orals or the pitch or the contract awarded. So, and this is somewhere where I really love that evolution as well, because it starts also by the moment when you are prompting, you start coming up with new ideas. So, and that is not something which you would typically have on the paper. Yeah, so when you just answer and say like, yeah, I understood that this is your key requirements. I understood that this is something of the priority. But right now, okay, I understood, I converted. I thought also about 3 other features, 2 other interlinked processes. I don't know, 6 months down the line when we don't have a new tool, but when we already are in the stable, hopefully, operations, we would also need, for example, this and this analytics on top. Yeah, like basics, I don't know, price difference from the previous period to be easily computed, or to the previous year, to the previous quarter. See, for example, how much of the escalations were not, price escalations were not approved. Yeah, and if, for example, my new request would come into the, let's say, non-approved ones, yeah, it also gives a different level of steering, to start thinking, okay, as an approver, I want to see maybe some additional information. I don't want to go to a different system, to retrieve my margins. Or I don't want, for example, to go to different systems to see how much we have sold to the specific customer. I know it's very B2B related. Yeah, in B2C, unfortunately, it's not even sometimes visible, how much we sold to one customer. But you start thinking much more already where we would want to go. Yeah, and how this could look like, rather than just saying, okay, we have understood what you have submitted to us.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, I remember that from my IBM times that we have been talking a lot quick wins, like there is a huge project, but what we can do now, like very simple, very fast, to prove that it works, like MVP in startup environment, or like quick wins, something quick, right? And before, I think it's not, what wasn't really possible. So now we really can deliver something quickly to win to win some credibility, right? In the for the whole project. That's true. So we sound like both like a AI evangelist. So let's maybe it's Friday.
Too
We are
much.
full of optimism about that, right? So the SaaS market is going down, but we are like we sound okay.
I mean, it's natural because I think we both also work in the technology area. So I think it would be relatively interesting if you would not be supporting this. Yeah, I mean, I understand that there are certain risks, right? And I understand that we really should promote a responsible AI use, and this responsibility should be clearly defined and understood. We also need to maybe control exactly, yes, what type of the data we are feeding and based on what terms, and how this can be hopefully not misused. So how it really can be used to the mutual benefit, because also pricing is an area where there is a lot of ethical concerns. In the B2B area, we typically argue quite a lot. So if you have a loyal customer who has been with us for 25 years, should this customer actually pay more or less? Shall we actually reward for the loyalty, or shall we punish for the loyalty? Yeah, because anyway, we have a higher willingness to pay from these customers. Yeah. So, and overall, when we talk about also algorithmic pricing, certain type of the strategic quadrails are highly critical, right? So I think we still remember the case from one of the mobility suppliers, which reacted to the increased demand in the specific geographical area. But the reason for that was that the area was not stable. So there was basically an event which caused public panic and which drove the demands basically to that geographical area. And the algorithms work in such a way that I have an increased demand, so what I would do, actually I would increase the price, which is, I mean, if you take it out of the context, it might sound reasonable. But if you start thinking that in this specific case, people were trying to get out of the dangerous geographic area and try to, for example, get their families, friends, strangers also safe and sound, to get them to the safe and sound location, that changes the paradigm. And I think also in pricing, the ethical perspective or certain type of the principles which you would not want ever to be breached. Yeah, it's somewhere where we really should pay a lot of attention also in the future when we are using the AI. Yeah, I think for B2C, it might be less maybe relevant in that regard because you have the mass probably price optimization. So maybe some
It
individual spikes might not have that type of the, let's say, impact or right away impact.
It depends on the level, right, of calculation, but it's also applicable. There is just a law, legal change in the one of states in US regarding price discrimination, for example. So any systems they cannot discriminate by gender or by nationality, by anything, and it should be part of the dynamic pricing. Uh, it's just one state, but I think that this kind of regulation will come in all US states one day, and that's fully ethical thing, right? So from just math perspective, it doesn't know just numbers, right? It doesn't know who is the person, etc. And it can see that it increase prices for specific minority of people, right? Which is illegal and it's not ethically correct. So that's definitely, I think that AI, it's so fast coming, and regulation just delay a little bit, but it will come after. So you cannot like in your case, right? This in that pricing case, right? I agree. That's and if we talk about the future, right? So regulations is definitely the future, but what else you see that will come?
I think in general there would be more blended requirements for the pricing managers or for the, let's say, pricing product owners. So actually to be able to really combine different levels of the expertise and to be much more technology driven. I also think that the conventional perspective of we design, we implement, and then for 5-7 years we kind of leave it a bit more untouched with just maybe one or two change requests coming in. I think that paradigm would also go away. So I think right now a matter of sometimes 1 or 2 years matter too much. Yeah. So, for example, in the area of the competitive price monitoring, it used to be a space where independent service providers were present. So we, for example, would also subcontract a certain company and for the 3 months try to get the competitive price data. Right now, for example, with Cloud, let's say we have this case this March, we built it within less than 3 weeks. Yeah. And it basically sourced, normalized, transformed the data of the key retailers in the Netherlands. Yeah. Yes, it was not perfect, and it might not be perfect from the first go, but I think that type of the interventions where you sometimes have certain use cases which are subject to be outsourced, but not fully outsourced, let's say implementation wise
Yeah,
outsourced
yeah, yeah.
towards the technology. That's something which we will observe more and more. Yeah. And also, I think the hunger, hopefully the positive hunger, for new things, for new experiments. Like, can we automate the value-based pricing? Can we actually identify what's the contribution or what's the average willingness to pay for the specific value driver for the products? I think this type of the questions will become more relevant and will start arising. And that's also what would drive, that the solutions will not become that, let's say, 5-7 years stable. That you would need to have a much smaller window and build in the architecture that is easily connectable. Also, if you want to replace certain component and pricing, for example, we are able to do it in a matter of days, maybe weeks, okay, but not in a matter of let's say 1 year transformation projects, yeah, which is something which we, I think, saw like 10 years ago. Yeah, so I think the future is much more fluid, much more flexible, much more agile. So all the words which technology can do, all buzzwords, yes. But I think building in that type of the paradigm, yeah, so building something which can be really adjusted to your future needs, building in the way that the components can be replaced, bringing a slightly different skill set to the pricing managers. So already setting certain type of the aspirations for where we see the field moving towards. Yeah, so for me, that's, I think, something which is relatively tangible in the next few years to come.
Yeah,
What
it's
about?
Yeah, it's yeah. Any predictions are predictions, but we're aligned here, and I think that regarding like the adoption of the technology, that's probably number one problem I see. We are like technology people. We are living a little bit in the bubble, right? In of we are using it every day. We feel that everybody it's around, but if we go to any company middle levels, so they are typically asking ChatGPT the receipt of pasta, not using it so heavily in business, and that's something which requires time and for adoption, for understanding, for limitations, risk, and governments, right? That's there is inertia, right? So people are not so fast as technologists in many cases. So, and our role probably also like to be to educate, right, the market and to reduce risk because now the only people hear about AI, it will take my job. So it doesn't help to start adoption of it, right?
I never tried a pasta recipe, so I think I should definitely do it.
No, it's very good. Yeah, you're too narrow in the pricing space.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
that's yeah. Go ahead.
I agree with you on the perspective of the adoption and also certain type of the fear, that it might take something away. But also, if I'm thinking out loud, there is a lot of, in Kahneman's world, there are two type of thinking, right? There is a type A and type B. Yeah, where type A is automatic, where we don't really think, what we are doing. It has become so mechanic for us that we just go and execute. And I think in business, there are a lot of decisions which are also made like that, also when it comes to pricing. Yeah, so there are a lot of decisions where, I don't know, we have updated our list prices in the last 10 years by indexing them on the average cost increase. Yeah, so, and then it's applied throughout the whole portfolio. And that's how we do it. It's already an automated task. We just, use it in the same way for the next years to come. Yeah, and I think that's where the technology might have a positive impact, when you start thinking about, okay, what am I doing today, which is, let's say, kind of a already made decision, even though I haven't really thought about this decision yet. Yeah, and where I can kind of improve it. So if I start thinking from the business perspective, from the middle management or senior management perspective on that type of the options, maybe I will come to the surprising results that there is so much routine already that I maybe stopped questioning certain things in my business and certain things and decisions in my pricing. Yeah, so I think on that side, if we focus a bit more towards that, like why we are doing what we are doing, why don't we want, for example, to really make it simpler, also for us and for our customers? Yeah, why don't we want to make it much more flexible and at the same time governed by the rules? Yeah, so why do we look only at the cost changes? Why don't we look, for example, why don't we try to look for a fixed period of time at the competitive price evolution? Why don't we look, for example, at the hit rate analysis, right? If you have a web shop, yeah, and we are able, for example, to derive, how many times the product has been viewed but never actually put into the basket, yeah, and purchased. Maybe there is something not very right with the price point which we have appointed. Yeah, so I think we need to kind of shift the paradigm of the inertia towards that type of questions, yeah, and to really come with an interest. I think that the most critical part is actually to create a hunger. Yeah, is to be able to say it's not like a scary animal, which hides under your bed and goes out at night, but it's actually something which can be used to really as a sparring partner. Yeah, can be used something as not to replace a task entirely, not to replace your thinking, not to replace your opinion, but something actually to strengthen your opinion, something actually to make your opinion maybe more grounded, more realistic. Yeah, so that's maybe the level of the optimism I would want to observe.
Yeah, consultant is almost always provide some psychology help.
I cannot guarantee that, so unfortunately, as I don't have any education in that area.
But that's part of the work, right? You're right.
That's part of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, also, I'm being honest, we cannot stop, right, this progress, right? And we cannot stop, or we can't prevent, certain things from being used. Yeah, I don't want to think about, let's say, the examples of harsh controls, I don't know, which we might observe in certain geographical areas. I'm really thinking that this is the way we as a world we are moving towards. And I think instead of trying to make it sound on the negative side, sound as a threat, sound as a replacement, sound as something which we don't want to touch and we don't want control, but at the same time we see all the rest of the world moving towards it. I don't think that's the right, maybe not the right, or maybe not the right, but not the best position to be in. I think, it's more about, okay, how can I use it? How can I strengthen my thinking? How can I make sure that I do not discriminate with my prices? How can I make sure that I really have the right requirements in? How can I make sure that, for example, I really make the setup for my team, which is really best? Yeah. So, and everyone feels comfortable and everyone feels inspired and so on and so forth to where we are moving. Yeah, so I think if you shift the paradigm towards that and get a bit more of the interest, that's the right way to go.
That's that's fantastic. On this very positive note, we will we will summarize today the podcast, and no, really, that's what needed. I think sometimes more positive. Definitely, there are risks. They are always there. Any change without risks not possible. Change without mistakes not possible. So that's that's for sure. From my side, I see always two things. So the like environments. So one environment is clear and stable, and that's where project management skills are the best. You can plan, you can have the good plan, and you can achieve what you need. And there is another environment, right, uncertain, like VUCA world, whatever how it's called now, and a lot of high level on uncertainty, right? You don't know what will happen next, etc. But there is another tool called agile, right? So you can try, you can act, you can learn. So you cannot use project management, at least it's very limited, but you can use agile in that sense. And with AI, I think that we should stay open-minded, right? We should like reevaluate what we are doing now and just try, see where it works, where it's not, and don't be like scared of coming changes. Thanks a lot, Polina, for today. I think it was a very Friday mood podcast and very positive. I hope our audience really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.